So hello from Green-Mopeds in London. So today we're taking out the Silence S01 Plus, which is their flagship bike, top of their range. We're going to do what we normally do, whiz it down the A3, see how it performs, and obviously tell you some stuff about it and where it sits in their range, and hopefully that will help you in your research. For those of you who are watching these in isolation, there will be a static review as well at another time. And also, just to cover off the brand. So Silence, out of Barcelona, have been around since 2011. Interestingly, they had more models, or sorry, a different mix of models than they now do. So they, back in, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, because they were actually in the UK before they've come back into being imported into Birmingham. They also had a 3-wheeler, which they now do not have. But their range is, depending on where you look, it's 5 or 6 models. I think it's now just 5 on the motorbikes, and they've just announced something called an S04, which is a micro-mobility car, a bit of a smart car, but runs off the same batteries as this. In fact, 2 of them. Anyway, that's for a different day. So to start at the beginning, the S02s are actually the sort of entry-level bikes. There's 2 or 3 of those. Let's say there's only 2 now. There's the standard S02 Urban, which is about £3,300. A 2 kilowatt-hour battery, and we'll talk about batteries more in a minute. 35 mile range, 1.5 kilowatt power. So quite an entry-level bike. Often used for sort of delivery or sort of short commuting. 28 mile an hour, L1E as they call it. And then you have the next one up on that, which is called the S02 Urban, which is 56 miles an hour, but that has the same battery as this one. So this is a 5.1 kilowatt hour battery, weighs 40 kilos. The thing about the S02, and they are different beasts to the S01s, is that they are essentially made for delivery. So the rear end of them is sort of like a platform, and the platform is meant to hold, they do this, I think it's 200 litre top box. So it's really made for that sort of thing, and you can change the platform into a 2-seater if that's what you want to do. But mostly it's made for delivery. So we've got a customer who uses those actually for delivery with a 200 litre box on the back. But as I say, we do also have customers who've taken it just as a bike, so it is perfectly possible. The thing about these bigger battery bikes is that their range, because they've got such a humongous battery, their quoted range is like 80 to 90 miles. You know, it's quite a lot. If you think about a what should we compare it to? A CPX, for example, that's got a 60 by 45 amp hour. So 6 by 45 is about 2.6 kilowatts, let's say, something like that. So this is 5.1 kilowatts. So, you know, there's a lot more in it. Hence, it weighs 40 kilo and comes on wheels. All right. So, yeah, that's the S02 Business Plus. Then you've got these ones, the S01s, and the S01s are more traditional motorbikes, as in not made for delivery. You've got the S01 Urban. Okay, well, I guess I can see it. They've actually decreased the battery capacity on that one. It's 4.1 kilowatt hours and 52 miles an hour. So decreased the battery and the speed over the SO2. But you get all the benefits of an S01, which is, and the main benefit of one of these bikes is storage. You can get 2 full-face helmets under the seat, so no real need for a rack unless you want more than that. Because the battery comes out at the bottom, you get all of the space under the seat. It's quite an innovative design. So that would be that. But obviously it only does 52. And because it's got 4.1 kilowatts, the range isn't as good. Okay. And then you've got the S01 Connected, which used to be the flagship. That does 62 miles an hour. So these are 125cc equivalent bikes, obviously. Does 62 miles an hour, has this battery, the 5.1 kilowatts. Again, WMTC figures are quoting, 80 odd miles. Realistically, if you're riding this around at, 50, 60 miles an hour, you're not going to get that. You're going to be getting more like 55 to 60 miles, but still pretty good considering it's a bike going at speed. It has a 7 kilowatt motor, hub mounted. Okay. And then you have this one, which is 7.5 kilowatt motor, but same battery. So obviously if you put a more powerful motor but keep the same battery, you're likely to lose a bit of range. So I reckon this is more likely to be realistic of about 50 miles. Okay, so that I guess is something to think about. Obviously, if range is your thing, bearing in mind they've both got the same nominal top speed, you might go for the Connected. Some of the other things that this bike has, because it is more money, so it's a bit more powerful, but as I said, a slight hit on range, is it has adjustable suspension. So at the rear, these are single swing arm bikes, by the way. You have a new rear shock, and it has 15 different settings. Not sure why you would need so many, but that's what you get. 15 different settings for your adjustment of the rear suspension. It also has wave discs, whether that makes a big difference to normal discs, I don't know, maybe slightly lighter, I guess. It also has, I guess, a more plush seat, so it's sort of like this sort of velvet finish on it. It does only come in one colour, which is this grey, which you probably can't tell in this sunlight. But the biggest difference, apart from the adjustable suspension, is it has something called push-to-pass mode. Okay, so while the S01 Connected goes 62, as does this, this also has like a turbo boost. Okay, so we've reviewed another bike recently that has a turbo boost, and on that one, that was called the Blue Shark. On that one, your turbo boost is really for getting you off the lights. Okay, this one is all about overtaking. So in fact, it only works at speed. In other words, you've got to be going at least 50 miles an hour before it even becomes an option. Whereas on the other ones, the other one in particular I'm talking about, it gives you a kick from 0. Okay, so to use the push to pass, what happens is you have to be, there's in the manual, if you read the manual, there's a certain set of criteria that the bike has to meet for the push to pass mode to work, including things like the battery temperature has to be right, you have to be doing over 50, and you have to be in mode 3. Okay, so as long as you meet those, then a little plus comes up next to the sport mode icon that says now push to pass is available. The other thing about it is for 30 seconds. Okay, so it literally is to overtake. Okay, so in other words, you know, you can accelerate in any mode, of course, from 0, but it will only become a push to pass option once you get to 50. Okay, so we'll show you that. Okay, so as I said, the main reason for buying this sort of bike is it's a proper, you know, size bike. It's basically 2 meters long. As I said, the battery weighs 40 kilos. The total weight of this bike, I think this one is, I think about 135, something like that, 140. Okay, but it's very good to ride because of the low center of gravity, because the battery is literally underneath the seat, as in at the bottom, not literally underneath my seat right now. Okay, so you don't feel, you know, the bike's heavy, and also because it's got that 7.5 kilowatts or available. So 7 kilowatts is, you're talking about nearly, in actual fact, 7.5 kilowatts is 10 horsepower, bang on. So, and that's electric horsepower, not petrol horsepower, which is totally different. Okay, so it does accelerate well, regardless. It's a bit odd. All right, so the other thing it's got, which you might spot as we're riding along, is it's got 3 modes. So at the moment, I'm traveling on at 30, doing in eco mode. So eco mode on a connected, as in the one step down from this, gets you to about 41. This gets you, because you've got the extra 500 watts, this gets you to about 43 in eco mode. So you could be, you know, most of the time, especially in London, you'll just be whizzing around in eco mode. Okay, and the other thing is that you'll see here that the battery, that's taking energy out right there, right? So, and when I let go of the throttle, there's regen, and that's passive regen, as in it's doing it on its own. Active regen is when you squeeze the brakes, right? So there aren't many bikes that have active regen. Okay, most of them are just when you squeeze the brakes. And I'm talking about at this sort of level, you know, on the zeros and all the rest of it. Yes, of course, you're going to get that. But on this sort of sub £10,000 bike, you don't get many that have passive regen. Okay, Ascol have it, which is quite unusual, and you can turn it on and off. Segway do it, and you can adjust it, and that one is really aggressive. And then you've got this one. You can't adjust it, but it is there, and you do feel it when it's kicking in, especially when you see the actual icons segments in the display. It is slowing you down. You can feel that. Interestingly, though, if you're in city mode, you don't get regen. Can't think of a good reason why you wouldn't have regen. I guess it might make sense. You could just turn it on or off completely across all modes, but they've decided that for city mode you don't get regen. Okay, but you do obviously in sport and eco. Okay, so I should ask them really, why not just have it on off completely? Okay, but that's the way it goes. Okay, so that's that. It does have, just as an aside, it does have an app. So on the Segway bike, for example, you can adjust the regen through the app. Okay, so you can actually say I want it strong, medium, etc., etc. This does have an app. It does, you know, a lot of the things you expect. So the main one is tracking the bike, so you can get its location if someone steals it, or you just want to know where it is in general. Notice you should hear indicator noise, so that's obviously good. So the app is mainly used for tracking the bike and things like that. Okay. So around the dash, it's, you know, pretty obvious sort of layout. The way you actually start the bike or put it into active. You see on the dashboard it says D, which means drive. when you first turn the bike on, you have to squeeze the brakes and press the mode button to get it into drive mode. However, there's no way of getting it out of drive mode like on lots of other bikes. So Horwin is the other example where you cannot take it out of drive once you put it in. The reason you want to take it out of drive is if you're moving it around. You know, if you're trying to move this thing around in a driveway, you don't really want the throttle to be active when you can't hear that the bike's on. Okay, so you might either want to turn it off, obviously, or turn it off and on again, and then it'll go out of drive. So there's the drive button there. So around the dash, it's fairly obvious what you've got. Speed, you've got trip counters, range. So when we left, it said 80-mile range. We're now down to 73 in eco, and we'll see what it gets to when we get back. Okay, so on the right-hand side of the dash, you've got hazard lights. You've got an info button. The info button gives you things like trip and other stuff. There is actually an info button on the dash as well. I'm not sure why you need two, but there you go. And then on the left-hand side, you've got the horn, indicators, and dipped full beam down here. Okay. As I said, under the seat, you've got space for two full-face helmets, and it is really two full-face helmets. There isn't a bike that gives you so much storage that we know of anyway. That is one of the primary reasons to take this bike. Okay. So as you can see, cruising along at 40, no issues. If I went to city mode now, one thing you do have to notice about this bike, or do have to build into your use of the bike, is essentially thinking time. So when you change modes, you press the mode button and you see it flashes before it engages. Okay, so it's not like on other bikes, press the mode button and it immediately engages the next mode up or down. It is flash, 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 engage. Okay, so you've got to build that into your riding this bike. Okay, the other thing about it is, if you're doing over about 40 miles an hour, you cannot go down into eco mode. So the way the modes work is, it obviously goes eco city sport, city eco. Okay, but if you're doing over 40, it will just go sport city, sport city. Okay. Obviously, the other thing to remember is if you're going down in modes and you're doing, 60 in sport mode, and you go into city mode, the throttle's not going to do anything until it gets down to a speed that is suitable for that mode. Okay, so we've got to the A3, and then hopefully you'll see the so sport mode. Here you go. I have to say, there really isn't much of any other bike, again, in this class, where you actually feel like you're accelerating. Most of them get to the speed that they're doing in the time that it takes them to do it. But this one, just a pure function of the amount of power you've got, really does hit it. So now you can see it says Sport Plus. So if I press it again, you see it goes plus, plus, plus. And now I'm in push to pass mode, and I'm up to 67. Okay, and then this will last for 30 seconds, and then it will cut. Okay, but cruising along at 67, now 68, that is just to allow me to overtake. It will cut out anytime. Okay, but it is an interesting feature for sure. It will eventually, there you go, it's now cut back down to sport. So I cannot engage that mode now for another 2 minutes. Okay, so it's just to get me overtaking what have you. Okay, so an interesting feature. So what we'll do is, as we normally do, we'll come off at the next junction and then we'll do a 0 to top using the push to pass and give you some figures. All right, so back in a minute. Okay, so here we are stationary, just to recap over the dash. So info button gives you things like battery temperature, trips, etc., etc., total distance, etc., etc. Then you've got your modes. So if I turn it off, turn it on again, see there's no D. So no D, so you have to squeeze the brake and press the mode button, and then you get drive. But you can't take it out of drive once you're in it. Okay, so that's that. Then you've got your hazards and lights, indicators, horn, etc. Front and rear discs, bag hook. You can get a phone holder that goes across here, landscape, if you wanted. Other options include the handlebar lock, so it locks it together like that, and also rear rack, various top boxes and things like that. Okay, so that's that. So what we're going to do is no mucking about. We'll just go straight to sport mode, see how quickly we get to top, and we will use push to pass mode when we can, when it lets us, which we'll see on the dash. All right, so I'll just wait for a break in the traffic and then we'll get going. Okay, so we'll put the times up later. Let's go. $50 already. Jesus. We're now in push to pass mode. So that was that. I mean, you know, that is what having a direct drive gives you. I didn't even have time to say 30, 40, 50. Okay, so you know, there's nothing else that we do that's sub £7,000 that is like this, basically. And it's partly because of the amount of power this bike has. Ah, interesting. You certainly notice when it comes out of push to pass mode. Okay. I don't know if you felt that, but it certainly, when the push to pass mode came off, you felt a definite release of power. Anyway, yeah, there's nothing else that we do that's sub £7,000 that behaves like this. Not in a motorcycle or moped, scooter. Okay. All right, so hopefully we'll put the times up, but as I said, didn't look like I even had time before it got to 50, so pretty impressive, certainly in terms of the sort of types of bikes that we do. Okay, so I'll just come off and then wrap up when we get to quieter roads. Okay, so in summary, well, I guess the question is, would you buy the Plus or would you buy the Connected? If it's really you want to squeeze out a bit more range, then it's probably the Connected, because it's less powerful with the same battery and therefore should give you more miles. The fact that this has got wavy discs, I wouldn't say that's a reason to buy it or not. Adjustable suspension, yeah, maybe. The push to pass mode, if you really want a bike that can get you out of trouble, or, you know, for those 30 seconds that you need it, has got a bit more power. Yeah, maybe, again. But it is £1,000 more. So you've got to weigh it up in that context. Okay. I mean, we've sold some, it's not that no one's buying them. It's just that that is the difference in price. All of the Silence bikes are on the grant, so they're all getting the £500 off. So in actual fact, this bike RRP is 7295 and it goes down to 6795. So you've got your 2 years on the bike warranty and 3 years on the battery. So that's good. If you like a European brand of scooter, because there aren't many, Askell is probably the only other one, and it's nothing like this in terms of performance. You know, if you don't want a Chinese bike, although there's probably a bit of Chinese in this, I would say, that might be a reason to buy this bike. But it's actually about the push to pass and the adjustable suspension, which we'll talk about on a static review. Okay, so hopefully that's helped you understand this bike a little bit. As I said, really, for the power, even on the connected, there isn't really anything, and the connected is less than 6,000. There really isn't anything else around. So it's really one that if you want to feel like you're coming down from a 300 or something, and you want a bike that still feels like it's got a bit of acceleration about it, then these are certainly the sort of bikes that you should be looking at. Okay, so please feel free to contact us if you have any questions. Please subscribe to Green-Mopeds YouTube channel so you get notified of any future reviews that we're coming out. We're on Instagram, Twitter, email, phone, all the rest. So if you need any help about any of those, or if you want to arrange a test ride, then please contact us. And hopefully that's helped you. Thanks very much.